it was therapy. Like it was something that I used as therapy to walk through like my own journey. But I remember being so frustrated with my therapist and being like, when am I going to be better? Like I shouldn't cry about this anymore. I shouldn't think about this anymore. I shouldn't be triggered by this anymore. And she's like, welcome back to the She Cultivates podcast, a space where we cultivate our best selves and community. My name is Elizabeth Savillon, and thank you for joining me on another episode. I'm here at Hi Hello Labs in downtown Orlando in this beautiful studio space, and I'm just so glad to be here for another episode where we talk about different things and 5 signs to know that you are doing better than you think, that you are healing, that you are growing, which I think when you're going through the process, you don't see it because you're always moving the bar. And so I will be getting into what that looks like. Before that, though, we have our She Cultivates community that we have events monthly here in Orlando, which is all about cultivating your community, cultivating friendships, cultivating relationships when it comes to women, and finding people like-minded like you. And so if you are in the Orlando area, make sure to check us out at She Cultivates ORL, where we have our upcoming events for May, our May groups. We have our June event, as well as other events that are coming through this year. And so we really love our community there. And if you want exclusive access to the content that we do here on the podcast, make sure to check out our Patreon, which is exclusive to members only. And that is a way that you can support the show as well as be just more plugged into the topics that we're talking about behind the scenes, what is happening, and just to educate you on how to cultivate your best self. So when I thought about this topic for today, I was thinking about how hard I have been on myself when it comes to when you look back at your progress or where you're at and you're like, oh, I should be farther along, you know? But sometimes those subtle things that have changed, if you look back a year ago, is a huge difference. I know in my healing journey, I have been very strict with myself and just very hard on myself when it comes to my progress, where I thought I would be, how I reacted to certain things. And so signs that, at least the first sign that you know that you're growing is that you can set boundaries. We all love that word. It's like saying no. It's saying, I can't right now. I'm at capacity. Being able to set those things when it comes to like, what do you need? And so for most of my life, I struggled so much to say what I needed, to say what I wanted, to be able to say like, okay, no, that doesn't make me feel comfortable. Or actually, no, that's not going to work for me. And so I always felt like that was being mean or that was not being respectful. But at the end of the day, like I am disrespecting myself when I say yes, when I really mean no. And so a huge sign that you are getting better and you're actually healing and growing is that you're able to say no. And you can maybe feel that feeling of like, dang, like, I feel a little bit like nervous saying no, or like, how are they going to react? But ultimately you're staying true to yourself. That can be with family members. That can be with just your work, maybe work boundaries when it comes to working overtime or like what they expect of you. And so all of that is very important when it comes to making sure that you're good, because a huge part of my growth has been becoming more assertive, becoming more clear about what do I want? What do I value? What aligns with me? And saying no to the things that are not getting me closer to who I'm becoming. And I think a lot of us struggle in the beginning to set those things because we feel uncomfortable, because we feel like we're going to lose if we say something, and I know in the past few years, I've lost a lot of friends because of that. I've lost certain relationships because we didn't align anymore. And I was not betraying myself anymore. And I was choosing to make sure that I was okay and making sure that I was good before betraying myself and saying yes, of course, even though I did not feel like that was real. And so the second sign that you are growing is that you feel your emotions and you know what is happening. And you guys know that when you're very numb to your emotions or you're very numb to yourself, you're kind of like on this like automatic mode. And a huge sign of growth is actually when you can cry or feel anger or express what you're feeling. And that a lot of us, it takes time to do that. A lot of us weren't taught on how to regulate our emotions. A lot of us aren't taught on how to deal with hard situations when we're frustrated, and we go to these numbing or coping mechanisms because that is what we know. And so a huge part of like my signs of when I was like, wow, like I'm doing way better is because I took a pause. And a pause is huge. I remember my therapist told me that. She's like, instead of being reactive in the moment, take a pause. And when you pause, you can be like, okay, what am I feeling right now? All right, what is really happening? Am I disappointed? Do I feel betrayed? Do I feel sad? Do I feel mad? Like, what is that emotion? And so when you're able to share that and say that out loud and like acknowledge those feelings and not push them down so much, then you're able to see that you can manage them. You can know what you have to do. Like, okay, what I actually have to do right now to feel better? Like, is it that I need to call a friend or I need to process my emotions or acknowledge with the person that I'm actually upset, I know in the past for me too, when I would feel like big emotions, I would isolate, and I would either just retreat myself or just not deal with it, or I would pretend like it didn't happen, and then I would be fine, but it's like I'm betraying myself, and that goes back to the first one. And so being able to acknowledge and be like, actually, no, that was hurtful, or like I'm hurt, or I need some space right now, and communicating that is huge, because a lot of the stuff that comes up in adulthood is stuff that stays dormant, or like we don't deal with from either the past, things that we've never been taught on how it comes to conflict, to managing friendships, to managing stressful situations, like what we talked about before of when you are in high stress, like it does reveal things about you. Like, how do you handle conflict? How do you handle very stressful days, or when people are pulling you from left to right, like all those situations. And we're not perfect and we will never be, but at the same time, being able to acknowledge that you're like, okay, I'm stressed. Like I need to take a breather, which before I would just go like on automatic mode. And then I would either like lash out or feel very, just kind of like, when you're pacing and people know that you're upset, but you just haven't said it. So that's kind of like how I feel like I used to manage things, and being able to see that actually I'm able to say like, man, I'm stressed, or like I need 5 minutes. I need to calm down, or hey, I'm not going to project how I feel to others, because it's not their problem and they're not, they didn't do anything. And so being able to navigate those things, I feel like has been healing, and that has been a part of my healing journey, to be able to deal with my emotions, which a lot of us can think of our emotions as scary, because you're like, okay, but if I feel this, like, will I be able to control it? Will I be able to actually get back to center? And those are things that you can learn. A lot of us learn emotional regulation as an adult, not as a child. And that takes intentional work to not repeat the same patterns that a lot of our parents and grandparents do. I know for me, I love my family, but I have been the person that kind of changed that within my family dynamic, to actually talk about things, to be like, no, that's not okay. Like that was very disrespectful, and I don't feel okay with that, or in setting those boundaries, because when people don't have boundaries themselves, they will always test your boundaries. They will overstep in certain things. So I was that person that I was like, no, I'm going to apply the things that maybe for you guys are not normal, but for me, that's the kind of life that I want, because I know this is what feels good for me. And so when you feel, you're able to process, and that helps you heal. So if you don't feel it, you'll never heal it. And that is a huge part of when you know that you're growing, when you're actually able to get, I would say, test of stuff that used to trigger you a lot, or situations that when you would see it or you would experience it, it would make you cry. When you're put in those situations, which I feel like God allows that for us to be faced with certain things to see how far we've come, then you're like, wow, like before that would really mess up my day, or I would react, or I would curse them out. And today I took a deep breath and I smiled and I kept going. And that's when you know that you're growing and healing. And I know that that's possible for you, because I know for me, there has been a lot of those moments recently that I'm like, all right, we're doing better than we think. And so another sign that you are doing better than you think when it comes to your growth and healing is that you used to maybe hustle for your self-worth, when you used to feel like you just did not know how to rest because everything had to be productive. And so you shamed yourself for resting, for taking care of yourself. And when you're able to take a pause and be like, wow, like I need rest today. I'm going to take one day off for myself, or I'm going to go do something fun instead of, instead of always working, and when you have goals and dreams, which I know a lot of you guys that are listening do, you're working towards the things that you want to do and the things that you have in your heart, right? That are good things. But a lot of us equate what we do to our worth. And I think that a huge part of you growing and healing that is seeing that even if I did nothing else, I am still worthy. I am worthy of rest. I am worthy of taking care of my body. I'm worthy of taking a pause, taking a mental health day if you need it. And I think a lot of us coming from that hustle culture, right? Like if you're in your 20s and 30s, I would say more like towards late 20s and 30s, that was so ingrained. And I remember like even growing up, it was like I had like a 10-step checklist on like all the things that I need to do on my day off, or like my chores that I had to do before I can go out, or like if I was laying in bed, it's like you're lazy, so rewiring yourself to actually believe that you are worthy of rest. And when you have those rest days, like you actually log off and without guilt. And I think that is maturity when you're able to see that. And of course, there's going to be seasons that are just, it is what it is, but you can only go so long in those seasons before you get burnt out, which I don't think any of us like that feeling. And so I have been intentional and, to rest and just know when I need to take a little break. Like I have mentioned before that I haven't taken a vacation in a very long time. And so being able to go on a bachelorette trip with my friends, like to another country to go to the beach, like I am just so ready, so excited. And I know I need that. And so I'm going to prep myself, schedule some stuff so that I can be fully present and that I don't feel like I need to be on work mode, because rest is also what helps you with like creative ruts. If you're someone that's a creative, if you're someone that is leading a lot of people, sometimes you need to also unplug to be able to be okay. And I know in multiple episodes that we've talked about with our nervous system, with Dr. Courtney, like we talked about that a little bit, about how taking the days off can like help your body feel more at ease and not be in the fight or flight, and actually be able to produce better stuff. Even when it comes to content creation, I know a lot of us are like, if you're in that space, right, you're like, oh my God, I need to post out five different content and like in all these different platforms. And it's like sometimes doing less for the season that you're in is good enough, And so those are the things that I've been learning and adjusting to. And another sign that you are growing and that you are healing is that you are noticing your inner voice, like your own, like who you are, like you're owning it. You're owning your confidence. You're owning what kind of life do you want? Like you're owning up to those things and not going so much of what everyone else is wanting for you or what you feel like you should be doing. When we talked about that, being that girl, right? Like being her, like cultivating her. It's looking at your life and being like, okay, what do I want it to look like? And what matters to me in this season? And that means that instead of, believing every thought that comes into your mind, believing every negative thing, or, you're challenging it, you're pausing and saying like, that's not true. Like, yeah, I'm having a bad day today, but tomorrow's going to be better. Or like, I did something, that I'm not proud of, but I'm not a bad person, so like reframing those things is so important, because that helps you know, like who do I want to be and who am I becoming? And so I think that's very important when it comes to not chasing that perfection, which a lot of us, as someone that is high achieving, very on the go, all these things, like we put our healing kind of like on a checklist. And I know when I started this podcast, it was therapy. Like it was something that I used as therapy to walk through like my own journey. But I remember being so frustrated with my therapist and being like, when am I going to be better? Like I shouldn't cry about this anymore. I shouldn't think about this anymore. I shouldn't be triggered by this anymore. And she's like, you work so much about being productive in your healing, and that's not how it works. Like, healing is up and down. There's going to be good moments and bad moments. It's not about being perfect. It's just knowing that you're handling things better. Checking in with yourself to be like, wow, like I'm actually kinder to myself. I actually am not impulsive anymore. I don't go numb out to, alcohol or drugs or sleeping around. Like, it's whatever that looks like to you. It's like you're doing better, and that's progress, because that's ultimately what we're working towards. It's not perfection, it is progress. And so being able to catch yourself and have that awareness is huge. And I feel like a lot of us can lack that. And in our healing process and knowing that you're growing is having those check-ins with yourself, being honest with yourself, where you're at, how are you thinking, how are you feeling, and even asking other people, which is a hard question for a lot of us. It's, how am I really doing, and what are the blind spots in my life that I don't see? Because all of us have them. All of us can think that we're sometimes better than we are, and and it's also the other side of that. Like, we think we're worse than we are, but being honest with ourselves. And I have those people in my life that I'm like, hey, like, where am I struggling? Am I being selfish? Am I being, too quick? Am I being impulsive? Like, let me know areas, and I've had to sometimes be like, ooh, that was not what I was expecting, but thank you for telling me, and being able to take that in. Or like how I've shared, acknowledging your flaws, because again, we all have areas to grow. So those are things that that's when you know that you're growing. But also the last thing is that you are making space for joy again. A huge part of you feeling like you're doing better is you're allowing yourself to hope, to dream. Again, things that maybe like before you would see the world in a certain way, like you're trying to be positive about it. You're seeing like, wow, like I'm excited for the goals that I have. I'm excited for the new interactions, the new friends, the new relationships. So you're doing a lot better than you think when you start seeing the world in a different way. And so that means that you laugh more instead of crying. That means that you are open to trying new things. That means that you are able to have grace with yourself in different areas of your life, and you're able to see things in a different light. And I think that I remember in the first parts of like my healing journey, it was a lot of me crying like randomly, or me being upset, or me getting triggered about stuff. And then now I'm like, wow, like I haven't cried in a few days. I love that. Like, that's growth, or that stuff doesn't bother me as much. And so being able to acknowledge those areas of your life and being able to see that you're not easily triggered, or your emotions are not all over the place, that's when you know that you're having fun again, that you're getting out there. And even if it's small, it's like those little joys. And I have this thing on Instagram where it's sharing my little joys, sharing the areas of my life that spark joy. And it can be little things. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. It doesn't have to be something that is, mind blowing, like went to another country, even though that brings a lot of joy. But all those things, it can be little things. Like today I did something different. Today I stepped out of my comfort zone. Today I was kind to myself. And today I did something fun that I've always wanted to, a salsa class. Why not? Like all the things that you can spark joy within your week. Maybe it's a slow morning. Maybe it's making, your coffee, or going to a coffee shop. So all those things that you can do to help you cultivate joy, which is very foreign sometimes. That feeling of joy is very foreign to someone that has gone through trauma, that has gone through a lot of stuff, because you're so used to the chaos that the calmness and the joy feels like, wait, when's the shoe gonna drop, And if I'm honest, I have those moments, and I've had those moments recently where I'm like, okay, things are going good in certain areas. Like, when is something going to change? Like, am I hoping again? Am I, excited about stuff again, like about certain things? And that's a huge part of healing. It's being able to accept the joys, not only the pain of life. And so those are signs that you are healing and that you are doing a lot better than you think. It's a process, and your growth will look so different than anybody else's. And I would highly recommend to take off the whole list of this is what growth should look like within the next year. Like, having goals and timelines is great, but also being flexible to know like, wow, like how did I handle that 6 months ago? How would I have handled that a year ago? And that's when you look back, you're like, wow, I'm actually doing better than I thought. And so you are doing better than you think. And I actually posted on Instagram this week about when you feel like you're behind in life. And that is always going to be a topic, especially with comparison on social media, that I know a lot of us can struggle with or fall into. And it's like a lot of us look at our 20s, 30s, and we're like, dang, like I haven't really done much. But we're the women that have gone to therapy, worked through our trauma, stop being a people pleaser. We have healthy relationships. We actually like ourselves. We feel comfortable with ourselves again. You know, we're trying to be better. Like we're trying to break those generational traumas. And that is growth. You are doing better than you think. And if you just give yourself that moment to be like, I am doing so much better than I think, and I've come a long way, then you'll be able to take it all in and be kinder with yourself. So I hope this episode encouraged you. I hope that it made you just reflect on where you're at. And maybe you're like, okay, I'm on like step 3, like I'm on the way. Those are still wins and you should be very, very proud. So I'm rooting for you. And I hope that you can share this with a friend, share this on social media, and tag us at SheCultivatesORL and at Elizabeth Sabi. And I will see you guys next week.